Now, before we begin diving into this match, I want to take a listen to what Chelsea's manager Enzo Maresca had to say about the effort of his team when they were 10 men down starting in the 38th minute and how proud he is of his side up against the Premier League leaders Arsenal. So let's take a listen.
For sure, the effort of the players. Arsenal, they are top of Premier League, top of Champions League, best defender in the Premier League, probably best defender in Champions League. So in this moment, they are the best team. And I think 11-11, we were better than them. And then with 10 players again, changed the dynamic. So the effort from the players has been outstanding.
I'm curious how this match would have been if it was 11v11 for the majority of the game, because Chelsea felt like they were getting the best of Arsenal, Jeff. But do you feel like it was a missed opportunity maybe for Arsenal to not be able to get more out of this game with a 10-man Chelsea?
Well, I'm not convinced it was ever going to finish 11 versus 11, Claudia. It was an old-fashioned tear-up. It was a proper war of attrition at times. Tackles were flying in. The referee, in some ways, I thought it was a very, very difficult game for him to ref. There were 6 yellow cards in the first half. That's the most we've had in the Premier League this season. So the players made it difficult, and I've got to say as well, some of the histrionics that's creeping into the game as well didn't help him either. There's no doubt about the red card. It's a red card all day long. I think before the game, if you'd said you'll win the first 2 and get a point at the bridge, so you maintain the distance between you and Chelsea, most Arsenal fans, and probably Mikel Arteta, would have taken that. It's the fact that they played the game with one-man advantage for 2/3 of the game. That is going to lead to an element of frustration or disappointment. But we all know playing against 10 does not guarantee you will immediately win. It's not the huge advantage necessarily that people think. So personally, I think perspective is required. Where we are in the season, where they are in the table, and the week that they've had as well, I think it's a more than acceptable point.
For Chelsea.
For Arsenal.
For Arsenal.
For Chelsea, if you go down to 10, you've got to be pleased with a point.
Yeah, I thought for Chelsea, it felt like a win, even though they got the draw, even though they were man down. For them to show the resilience they had, and also the ambition that they had, I was really impressed with this Chelsea side. I have a bit of slight disappointment for Arsenal. I agree with the 7 points if you look at the grander picture, but the point you made about 2/3 of a match is the best team in world football right now, right? For them to lack a cutting edge in the ways they did, and frankly, I thought up until the red card, they looked rattled for the first time we've ever seen them this season. You could say the emotional outputs, but let's not kid ourselves. They bossed the game against Tottenham. The one game that was the emotional output was the Bayern game, right? So with the man advantage, I was hoping for a bit more. And I just thought that the likes of Zubimendi struggled in that match. The likes of the 2 center backs, which we'll get into in a little bit, struggled in that match. And the red card kind of bailed Arsenal out.
Because of the way that Chelsea was playing. It was a great game plan from Maresca. Let's dirty up the game. Let's get into it. Let's make it a gritty fight the entire game. Up until the red card, the game needed something to change. The dynamic of the game needed to change. It was either a goal, a big moment like that, because if not, it was going to be very cagey, very gritty. As long as Chelsea wanted to make it, and perhaps Arsenal wasn't ready for that. And it just so happened it got so cagey, so gritty that a red card ended up what opened the game up a little bit. And it's such a shame. You say that it felt like a win for Chelsea, which I agree. I think it feels like a win after the sending off. But if you're Moises Caicedo, just going in like that, overzealous into that tackle, it does feel more like a lost opportunity, because you were playing such a great game, and in fact you were probably even better than Arsenal with 10 men for a little bit. It's like we were deprived of such a
don't forget as well. I mean, there's no the red card. It's just he's just
dumb.
He's just got it all wrong, hasn't he? But he'd previously been charging around the pitch, flying into tackles.
3 challenges.
Yeah. So it wasn't. I mean, he only gave a yellow.
Yeah, so, sensational.
I thought he went so early with his first booking, Anthony Taylor. He almost gave himself a problem, because then players are appealing for every foul. Arsenal thought that Raya should have been sent off as well. So it was difficult. And also, don't forget, Arsenal were without either of their first choice centre backs, and they just looked a little bit leggy, a bit fatigued, and Arsenal creatively were nothing like their best at the weekend. They lacked that spark. And we all talked about, do you remember we spoke in the week, we couldn't wake up to see this amazing matchup, Enzo and Caicedo, Rice and Zubimendi. We never really saw it, did we? Reece James pretty much bossed the midfield when he came into midfield. He was excellent. It was quite open and it was quite punchy. I don't think it was the game, Claudia, that any of us were expecting.
Yeah, you spoke about the defense. No Gabriel, no Saliba for Arsenal, and they give up a goal on a corner kick, Lahoud.
Yeah, I mean, without Gabriel and Saliba, this Arsenal backline is a completely different backline. I know it's the first time we saw Nkapie and is it Mosquera that got their first pairing together, but I thought they were very shaky in that first half, and I think there was a chance that João Pedro should have scored. I mean, lay the ball off to Esteval. He chose to take the shot. Yeah, he chose to take way too long, and that's going to come when it's an early pairing. But I look at the intangibles in this, and I was really disappointed with Christian Mosquera in terms of on the ball. He looked very nervous, and Chelsea targeted him. I mean, they took the likes of Jurgen Timber and said, Pedro Neto, I'm going to mark you. They man-marked everyone and said, we're going to put the game on the center backs and allow them to make the game. And yes, with the man advantage, Mosquera really settled in a bit more. But of the two, I would have said that he had a better performance than Nkapie in terms of on the ball, in possession. But you really see the void that's left without Saliba and without Gabriel. And both these two players in the North London derby and against Bayern, they had the benefit and the calmness of Saliba next to them. And you really see, and just presence-wise, the leadership of a player like Saliba with Gabriel being out. That's a big, big void that Arsenal had, and it really showed on the day.
So if you say all of that, makes the point look better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, of course. But going down, the thing is that they went down a goal when they were a man up on a corner kick. Like, again, I don't think we should use Arsenal not having certain players as an excuse, right, at this season. Like, I feel like that's become the theme of Arsenal. They're so deep at this point. Maybe it serves to explain a certain outcome in a game, but it won't serve to explain where they end on the season if it's not winning some sort of silverware.
No, of course, that is entirely the narrative, to win something. But it's funny that the set-piece goal that they conceded, Trevor Chalobah, he's just helping it on. He's not going for goal. And nobody was really at fault. It's one of those things you can't legislate for. He's entitled to win that ball. The man behind him is close to him. It's not a goal where you look at it and say, we should not be conceding a goal. You don't want to give up any goal. But I didn't think the keeper was at fault. The centre-halves weren't necessarily at fault. But they just didn't create enough. I think Chelsea had more shots than Arsenal. And that's where they looked a little bit mentally tired more than anything else.
I think one thing that surprised me, I know he was on a yellow card, but given how shaky both centre-backs were, I was surprised Mikel Arteta didn't shift Ricardo Calafiori to centre back, because he does play that position. And I thought that would have just given a bit more balance to the back line, and maybe it frees up Lewis Skelly to get more involved in the ways, but that would have been the only thing I could see potentially to do forward.
But he hooked him because he was on a yellow card. Yeah. So that's why Calafiori went out.
Right.
So
they all got booked, right? Who was... they got booked early, Three of the four in the back line were booked very early on. I thought that it was crazy that Chelsea didn't do a more active effort on trying to go after one of the three guys in the back line that was already on a yellow, and it didn't work out to try to even it numerically. But yeah, I think the perfect headline is the game that we all did not expect.
No.
Good game, very good game to watch.
Sometimes an entertaining game isn't necessarily a great game.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really entertaining game that wasn't necessarily a great game of football.
Alan, you were on the call yesterday for the Arsenal-Chelsea matchup. So, I mean, for you, you said that maybe you didn't enjoy it maybe as much as you thought that you would, and I'm interested to hear why.
Yeah, I mean, when I put the microphone down at the end of the match and you start thinking about it, and you think, well, that was high octane, it was full-blooded, it was aggressive, but he didn't have the quality that I thought he'd have. You know, I thought we'd see a little bit more football. But listen, it's it's a London derby, and from the first minute, you knew it was going to be that kind of game, really. Proper tear-up, I think, as Jeff said earlier, and tackles flying in left, right and centre. But coming into it, I thought, oh, yeah, this should be a really good spectacle. It was, but not in the way I thought it was going to be. Yeah, it was an old-school derby, and I've been involved in plenty of them where not a lot of football is played, maybe not too many chances either end, but still compelling to watch.
Smudge, do you think it showed that Chelsea had a day more to prepare? I mean, it's a slight thing. I'm just thinking the momentous week that Arsenal had. They just looked a bit fatigued, or maybe the fact it was London derby meant there was no football to be played. Did you think they weren't at their best creatively as they have been of late?
Well, they definitely weren't at the best creatively, were they, Jeff? Yeah, I just thought they're just lacking that little bit of zip, that little bit of spark to create chances. And I did wonder about the extra 24 hours. And I was watching the press conferences afterwards, and I was thinking, is Mikel Arteta going to mention it? And he did mention it. I mean, it's only 24 hours, and both had big nights in the Champions League, emotionally draining nights in a way. So, from that point of view, Chelsea had their match against Barcelona, played brilliantly in front of their own fans, and Arsenal likewise against Bayern. And he does, I think, emotionally and that, he does take a fair bit out of you. But Chelsea didn't seem to lack for legs and aggression. Arsenal did. They started slowly and couldn't really pick it up. But, when you look at the 3 matches in total, I think it was still a good week for them.
Smudge, just looking at the bigger picture, Arsenal 5-point lead in the table over Chelsea side, and they've created a bit of cushion, right, in the Premier League. When you look forward for the Gunners, I mean, is this going to be that feeling of, is this the year?
Well, that's all the talk in England, Mikey. That it's Arsenal's to lose. I hate that phrase because we're only in early December and they haven't won it yet, so it's not theirs to lose. But listen, I think they're the best team in the Premier League. I don't think many people argue against that. They've got the best squad. I can't remember a team, never mind about just Arsenal, a team in the Premier League having a better quality, in-depth squad whereby, you don't miss players as much as you otherwise might. So, yeah, they're in a brilliant position, both in the Premier League and the Champions League, and I think the belief's there. When they line up in the tunnel now, I've been in this position, you look across to who you're playing against and you think, yeah, we're better than you. And we know that that we're better than you. And that gives you an advantage. But, in fairness, Chelsea stepped up yesterday and bridged the gap. So fair play to them for that.
So much, you've been in the position before of the Arsenal players now. You've won titles with the club. How do you manage this sort of expectation in the narrative that's been set? Everyone is talking about this in England.
Yeah, well, you've got to try and avoid the noise, Nico, which is difficult. All the lads are on social media, and whenever they go out, there'll be members of the public talking to them and telling them they've got to win it. This is our year. And it's just part and parcel of it. You either can handle it or you can't. But I think they are ready to handle it now. They've obviously had some very close calls, finishing second. We've been talking about Arsenal as a young side for a long time. They're no longer a young side. They're an experienced one. And I think the belief and the desire is there. Having come second, they're determined for that not to happen again. So we'll see, but all the pieces are in place. I think Mikel Arteta is a fine coach. And, hopefully now that I'm at the Brentford game on Wednesday down at the Emirates, and I think they'll bounce back from yesterday and go on another run, a winning run.
Smudge, you were Arsenal number 9. You won a Golden Boot twice. Although Mikel Merino got the goal yesterday, do you think it has shown, certainly yesterday as well, the lack of a proper centre forward? I mean, we talk about Arsenal in depth, and it's been a bit freakish injuries, and the only true striker they've got is Gyökeres. Jesus, even arguably you could say he's not a number 9. Do you think that has, we talk about their strength in depth, but when you examine closely, are they complete, or do they actually need a little bit more anywhere?
Yeah, I think there's still a lot more to come from Gyökeres, Jeff. He's had this injury, and he's, sometimes he's played, sometimes he's on the bench. He's got a few goals, but I don't think we've seen the best of him. I'm not saying he's a world-class centre-forward or anything like that, but he gives you something that they haven't otherwise got in terms of somebody who's going to get in front of their centre-half in the box, anticipating. But Kai Havertz is back training and very close to returning. So, again, that's another option. So I don't see that as a problem. There are a lack of centre-forwards in general, really, out there. I mean, Chelsea, you could argue, at the moment, are lacking one. João Pedro did it yesterday. I mean, he's not an out-and-out centre-forward. Liam Delap, he's still trying to prove that he can really do well there. So quite often coaches are looking at ways to get around it. But yeah, I think Arsenal have got enough choices, definitely, in that department.
What is the best quality, Smudge, do you think that a Premier League striker needs to succeed?
Belief, I think. Belief that you're good enough. It's a frenetic league. It is still physical. And you've seen players coming in that have taken time to adjust. Now, obviously, lads that are brought up in England, and it's not such a shock. But you've got to be resilient physically in order to take the knocks. It's not as physical as when I played, for instance. Forwards are protected a lot more. But I think it's the pace of the game, and being able to think as quickly as you need to. And as far as strikers are concerned, it's never changed. If you start scoring goals, then everything flicks into place. Everything just feels that much easier.
All right, Alan, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care.
Cheers, son.
Thanks for watching.
Mikel Arteta has made it clear that Arsenal will need to unleash their complete player against Bayern Munich. The Gunners host the German champions at the Emirates Stadium on Wednesday, and one man in particular could be decisive. Ebereki Eze, described as a very complete player by teammate Mikel Merino, is emerging as one of Arsenal's most dangerous weapons ahead of their Champions League clash with Bayern. The 27-year-old announced himself in North London with a stunning hat-trick in his first derby since arriving in a £67.5 million move from Crystal Palace. His 3 brilliant goals dismantled Tottenham, and truthfully, he could have scored even more. Merino believes every one of Arsenal's 8 summer signings has lifted the squad's level, helping the team build a 6-point lead at the top of the Premier League. But Wednesday's matchup is different. Bayern Munich, the reigning Bundesliga champions, represent the toughest test yet for Arteta's side. Speaking after the win over Spurs, Merino praised Eze's qualities and hinted at the impact he could have in such a high-stakes European battle. "We've brought in a lot of players who can make a difference. But you can see that other teams have spent big as well," the Spain international said. "Individual brilliance can win matches, sure, but in the end, it's the team that matters. If you have great players who don't connect, that's a problem. The good thing about this group is that everyone thinks about the team first." When asked about Eze specifically, Merino didn't hesitate. "I think he's incredibly complete. He can dribble, he can pass, and his technical quality is outstanding. In Spain, we always talk about players who can connect with others. He has that naturally. He grew up with that instinct to link play, move the ball, and build relationships on the pitch. He also has the mindset to get involved, demand the ball, and influence the game. At the same time, he's strong, he can take players on, and he can finish. He's a truly complete signing." Merino also touched on how the modern game often reduces players to simple numbers. "These days everyone judges players by goals and assists, that's just how it is. But as footballers, we see the deeper qualities he brings, the technique, the movement, the intelligence. Even in training, you can tell immediately how special he is. Yes, he's scoring goals, but he's much more than that. He's an exceptional player, and we're incredibly lucky to have him. He can play in several positions and adapt to different systems. He's been a huge addition for Arsenal." Beyond the technical qualities, Merino believes Eze's attitude, and the healthy competition within the squad, will be crucial in Arsenal's title push. You can hear the calm in Ebereki's voice and see it in the way he carries himself. He's confident, grounded, and every morning we sit together in the sauna at the training ground and talk about everything, he added with a smile. "He's a great guy, already fully integrated, and we need players like him. Competition is fierce. There's so much quality in this squad. That's exactly what the manager wanted, as many top players as possible, all ready to play. It makes his decisions tough, choosing who starts and who doesn't, but it also pushes every one of us to give our best in every session. and that's why we're improving as a team. As Arsenal prepare for Bayern's arrival, Arteta is facing one of the most delicate balancing acts of the season. The squad is healthy, competition is fierce, and expectations have never been higher. But behind the scenes, there is a growing sense that Iza's versatility and calm presence may be essential against a Bayern side known for controlling the tempo in big European nights. Arteta himself has hinted at Iza's importance without naming him directly. After the Tottenham victory, the manager spoke about the need for players who can break pressure, dictate rhythm, and stay composed when the game becomes chaotic. Those inside the club believe those comments were aimed at Iza as much as anyone. The coaching staff has been particularly impressed by how quickly he has adapted to Arsenal's positional play structure, a system that demands far more tactical discipline than what he was used to at Crystal Palace. Analysts at the club point to his growing influence not only in the final third, but also in build-up phases, where his ability to glide past pressure could help Arsenal bypass Bayern's aggressive midfield line. There is also an awareness that Bayern's fullbacks tend to push high, leaving spaces between the lines. Iza's skill set, sharp turns, deceptive acceleration, and precise final balls, could be exactly what Arteta needs to exploit those gaps. Outside the club, pundits have already started circling Wednesday's match as a defining moment for the £67.5 million signing. Some believe that if Iza can impose himself on a Champions League quarter-final against Bayern Munich, it will confirm his arrival among Europe's elite creative players. Former players have echoed that sentiment. Several ex-Arsenal figures, speaking on television over the weekend, highlighted the need for someone who can change the temperature of the match with a moment of calm or an unexpected burst of creativity. Iza, they argued, is one of the few in the squad capable of both. Meanwhile, Bayern Munich come into the match with their own confidence. Their midfield trio has been one of the most dominant in Europe this season, and they have shown a repeated ability to suffocate opponents early. That dynamic is precisely why Arteta may lean on Iza's composure. When the game tightens, Arsenal will need a player capable of slowing it down, protecting the ball, and finding solutions in tight spaces. Within Arsenal's dressing room, Merino's praise reflects a broader consensus. Senior players have reportedly been struck by Iza's humility and work ethic, qualities that have helped him integrate seamlessly into a squad that already had strong internal chemistry. Staff members describe him as someone who never forces the game, and lets the match come to him, characteristics that could prove invaluable in a high-tension Champions League tie. As kickoff approaches, the narrative surrounding the match has shifted. What began as a test of Arsenal's resilience has quietly become a spotlight on whether Iza can elevate them in Europe the same way he has in the Premier League. For Arteta, the equation is simple. If Arsenal are to overcome Bayern, they will need more than intensity. They will need control. They will need creativity. And increasingly, they will need the completeness Iza brings to every phase of the pitch. Whether he starts in a wide role as a floating midfielder, or even as an interior playmaker, the expectation is the same. Iza will have to find the spaces others cannot, and influence the game in ways that statistics alone will not capture. The stakes are high, the opponent is formidable, and the spotlight is intense. But within the walls of London Coney, the belief is growing that this is exactly the kind of stage Ebereki Iza was signed for. Martin Odergard is nearing a return to action after suffering a medial collateral ligament injury in Arsenal's 2-0 win over West Ham earlier in October. Yet, 3.5 years after Mikel Arteta named him captain, the Norwegian finds himself in an unfamiliar position. His place in the starting lineup is no longer guaranteed. For the first time since joining the club permanently from Real Madrid in August 2021, there is real debate over whether he remains an automatic choice for Arteta's 11. Odegaard, now 26, has been central to Arsenal's resurgence under Arteta, the conductor who shaped the team's rhythm through some of their most fluid football. But this season, the Gunners have been forced to navigate long stretches without their captain, first due to a shoulder issue that kept him out of 4 matches in September, and then because of a knee collision with West Ham's Crescencio Somerville that sidelined him again. And during his absence, something significant happened. Ebereki Iza stepped into the spotlight. Iza's sensational hat-trick in the North London Derby has complicated the picture. Now thriving in a central role, the England international has given Arsenal a different kind of presence around the edge of the box. A blend of unpredictability, directness, and two-footed confidence that opponents struggle to contain. He may not control games with the same metronomic precision as Odegaard, but he offers a spark, a willingness to take risks at moments when Arsenal need a jolt of creativity. After such a standout performance against Tottenham, it feels almost impossible to imagine Arteta leaving Iza out. The manager has always had a soft spot for players riding a wave of confidence, and Ease is currently surfing at full height. There was a similar situation back in September, when Merino was handed a start against Manchester City after scoring 4 times in 2 games for Spain, including a hat-trick against Turkey. Arteta doesn't hesitate to reward form. Ease has carried that form onto the international stage as well, recently scoring a stunning goal for England in a 2-0 win over Serbia in the World Cup qualifiers at Wembley. Though he can play on the left, it has always been clear that Arteta brought him to the Emirates to operate in midfield. And with Declan Rice and Martin Zubamendi near untouchable in the double pivot, the odds of Ease and Odergard consistently starting together seem slim. That leaves Odergard in an unfamiliar position. He needs minutes to rebuild sharpness, yet Arsenal's medical team won't rush him. The plan is likely to ease him back through short substitute appearances before restoring him to larger roles. But even once fully fit, Odergard faces genuine competition, because Ease has shifted the landscape. His arrival has raised the team's ceiling, and his performances have earned him the right to keep his place. Before the dismantling of Tottenham, Ease had scored only twice for Arsenal, one against Port Vale in the Carabao Cup and another versus his former club Crystal Palace, a clever finish that sealed victory. Now, with 5 goals across all competitions, he sits just 1 behind Odegaard's total from last season, when the captain made 45 appearances. Odegaard's 2023-24 numbers were outstanding: 11 goals, 12 assists, influence written across every competition. That is the standard he must match again if he wants to reclaim his spot, because Ease is hungry, confident, and eager to impress ahead of next summer's World Cup. Arteta will insist that Arsenal need both players at their best if they are to meet their ambitions in the months ahead. And with Kai Havertz also working his way back to full fitness, potentially slotting into midfield behind marquee striker Victor Gyökeres, the battle for places has never been fiercer at the Emirates. For Odegaard, the message is clear: he must rise to the challenge. His leadership and quality remain unquestioned, but he can no longer rely on reputation alone. If he embraces the competition and fights his way back into the side, his return could push Arsenal to even greater heights. And if the team has already reached this level without several key figures, the potential for what comes next may be even greater. Inside the club, staff members are quietly acknowledging that Arsenal are entering a new phase, one where no player, not even the captain, is immune to tactical evolution. Arteta has spent the past 2 seasons building a squad capable of sustaining pressure across multiple competitions, and the emergence of Ease is a sign that the manager's long-term planning is beginning to bear fruit. Depth is no longer a luxury, it is a necessity. But with depth comes difficult decisions. Arteta has always valued balance in midfield, and the contrasting profiles of Odegaard and Ease force him to reconsider what type of midfield best suits the team's ambitions in Europe and the Premier League. The technical control and spatial awareness that Odegaard brings have defined Arsenal's identity under Arteta. Conversely, Ease's dynamism, physical presence, and unpredictable touches give Arsenal a new dimension, especially against teams that sit deep or defend aggressively in central areas. This internal shift has also caught the attention of analysts and former players. Several pundits have begun to question whether the captaincy should guarantee a place in the lineup, especially at a club with ambitions of challenging for the Champions League. Others argue that Odegaard's leadership is too valuable to sideline, pointing to the standards he sets in training and his influence over younger players. Those debates are already spilling into the media, and they will only intensify as the season progresses. There is also the tactical question of whether Arteta might eventually experiment with a system that accommodates both Ease and Odegaard, something he briefly attempted earlier in the season during the win over West Ham. But with Rice and Zubamendi forming an almost impenetrable midfield pairing, any reshuffle risks destabilizing the defensive structure that has made Arsenal one of the most resilient teams in the league. The manager has hinted that he is open to adjustments, but only if they enhance the team's overall cohesion. For Odegaard himself, the challenge is as much psychological as it is physical. He has worked hard to cultivate an image of calm authority, a leader who raises the level of those around him through clarity and consistency. Now he must show that he can adapt, compete, and respond to adversity. His teammates still speak of him with admiration, describing him as one of the most studious and detail-oriented players at London Coney. They believe that once he regains full rhythm, he will naturally reassert his influence. Yet even they acknowledge that the landscape has shifted. One senior player privately remarked that, "The team is different now, Ease has changed what we can do in the final third." That sentiment reflects not a lack of faith in Odegaard, but an understanding that Arsenal have evolved while he has been sidelined. For Arteta, the ideal scenario is straightforward: a fully fit Odergard competing with a fully confident ease, creating a level of internal competition that lifts the entire squad. The manager often speaks about the need for healthy tension among his players, pressure that keeps standards high without fracturing unity. The arrival of Victor Gyökeres, combined with the recovery of Havertz, only amplifies that dynamic. Arsenal's season will almost certainly hinge on these midfield decisions. With Champions League knockout matches approaching and the Premier League title race tightening, Arteta must decide not only who starts, but what kind of identity he wants his team to carry into the defining months of the campaign. The next few weeks will reveal whether Odegaard's return sparks a resurgence or a battle for relevance. If he manages to reclaim his place, it could serve as a reminder of why Arteta trusted him with the armband in the first place. If he struggles, it will underline how rapidly Arsenal are progressing, and how little room there is for sentiment at the highest level. Either way, the captain's response will shape not just his future, but the trajectory of a team that believes it is on the brink of something significant.